we've got like this coffee table, and it's
Yeah.
worth like, I don't know, $3,500 or something crazy. So
Dang.
not that I would ever buy it, but hey,
I
if
mean,
it's a
you
hand me
know, it
down, I'll take it.
was probably, built with wood from the Titanic or something. That's, yeah. Well, good morning. It's February the 14th, 2024. Happy Valentine's Day, Chad.
Yes, yes, it is. You know, as much as I love to hate on Valentine's Day and the fact that we don't even really know or celebrate the reason for the season, as it were, um, we really like celebrating it with our kids, always have. So, like, all month, this is Shauna's idea, all month long, every day, we do this each year. We put a little comment on a little like heart shaped note card, whatever,
Mm.
for each of the boys. Say, I love it when you such and such. Like, I love to
Brush your
watch
teeth.
you. I was gonna say, you know, play the piano or play the guitar, or I love watching you do such and such, right? Um, and as I'm walking in here this morning, I see Shauna has a little bag she put in front of their door, and I chuckled. It reminded me of like, setting out little Easter basket or something. Um, so yeah, I love to hate on Valentine's Day, but we do it too. We
Yep.
just kind of made a decision like we're not kind of obligatorily, if that's even a word,
Mm-hmm.
doing kind of gifts on some of these holidays. So, but we do kind of like spending it with the boys and giving them stuff, and I'll probably come try to pillage some candy from them later. So,
Hey, there you go. Yeah, this is one of those holidays that it can be fun. It can also just be another day that goes on. So I have to set reminders for myself. Okay, go by the store later and pick up flowers and chocolates, and I'll probably try and find Amelia a cute little stuffed something should the opportunity present itself without going into massive amounts of debt. And then Megan and I will this is be one of the few nights out of the year where we intentionally are like, hey, let's get steak. And we'll grill steak at home and
well, that's cool.
make a nicer meal out of it. But we really don't go nuts. One year, okay, maybe we do. One year, I think it was in Jacksonville. I don't even know if we had Amelia or not. I can't remember. I think we did, but I think she was starting to sleep through the night. So we Valentine's fell on a Sunday. We'd been out of town that weekend up here in Georgia. We drove back down, got her to bed, and then as Megan was making Valentine's Day dinner, I like did this whole like we're picnicking in Paris or we're eating at a cafe in Paris. And basically what I did, and this is super cheesy, so if we all get crazy, I think I threw a blanket on the ground and like put like little wine glasses down, poured a little wine, and then on the TV I found one of those like here's Paris like coffee shop music, and it happened to have like the Eiffel Tower in the background of this coffee shop. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen those ambient
Oh yeah.
so I threw that on, and when Megan came over, I was like, "Well," I was like, "Have you ever wanted to eat in Paris before?" So we had like steak and asparagus in Paris. It was pretty funny, but it was me trying. Like, we've been in the car all day, you know. Now we've got a kid added to the picture. It's like, what do you do to still kind of keep this somewhat? I don't know. It's a goofy holiday. I know we'll dote. I know we'll dote on Amelia. Like, she's got little chocolates to take to school and give to her friends. And of course, I have a girl, so now that means that she's gonna come home with 1,000 Valentine's Day cards as she gets older, with all these boys trying to woo her. And I'll have to send back little drawings of beheaded stickmen. Anyway,
Yeah, and so two other quick things I'll share. One, I did do the chocolate and flowers one year. I believe it was the first year we were together, and did it up, brought her a dozen roses
oh,
and some chocolate, and realized that night that she's allergic to both of those items. So, first and last
mm,
time,
yep.
killed it, knocked it out of the park. The other thing is, I will share that since we are a homeschooling family, you know that my children know the origin of Valentine's Day and how,
Oh
as a
boy.
society, we have destroyed the actual meaning. So,
I
anybody,
can already see Pierce in my mind's eye getting like furiously bent as he explains how we've come so far from the origins of St. Valentine's
yeah,
Day.
yeah, we had this conversation the other day, and it was something like, oh, yeah, it's awesome how, like, this guy basically, sacrificed his life, allowing people to be married when it was illegal. And yeah, we went ahead and made a stupid, and Sean was like, literally, Hallmark created the holiday. And we just go with it. But,
Uh,
I also sit here and admit that we do it, right?
yeah,
we do the lovey-dovey notes to our kids and the little and the chocolate things and it's kind of funny, but um yeah, so there you are.
there you are.
I feel like I'm in both worlds
There
on
you are.
Valentine's Day. So
Yeah, I'm sure that's funny. Easter's the one that gets me really bent out of shape. The secularization side of Easter. That one for some reason just makes me mad. Like I get as like fundamental as those like uber conservatives who are like Halloween is the devil worship. Um, Something about that dang bunny, man, it just makes me angry. But that's not the purpose of this show. We can talk about the Easter rolls around in a couple weeks. Speaking of which, I know today is the start of Lent for you. For our listeners, this is well 2 weeks into it, so they'll eventually get a check in. But what are you choosing? I don't have anything, so don't ask me. I haven't even given it thought. Apparently, I gave up working, and that was 2 months ago. So by this point, my
oh
Lent's
wow.
almost over. No, that was a joke. That was a really bad joke. Um, but I know 1122 is big on it. You guys had Elder Led Prayer last night. I did not watch Elder Led Prayer. I did watch Sunday's talk though, and then part of the Deepen podcast that went with it. But what you up to for the Lent season?
So the first thing I'm going to do is confess and say that for the first time I actually did not attend elder led prayer.
It's okay, Joby's not Jesus, so you're fine.
I do have a good excuse. I was helping out high school students.
Yeah, that's
Sean
allowable.
and I were asked to come and do. Oh, she serves there anyway, but we do middle school on a different night. So, um, we were asked to come and participate in a little rendition of like the Newlywed Game, and I thought we were gonna crush it. It was horrible.
Dang.
Oh my goodness, we did so bad. Um, but yeah, so for people that don't know the Newlywed Game, it's kind of a thing where they ask a question like, so for the ladies, where does the lady like to go out to eat? Right. And then so the guy and the girl both scribble down an answer on a little whiteboard, flip it around, and if you have a matching answer, like
Voila.
you get a point. So we got the first one we got, nailed it. Um, what is her favorite drink? Easy. Earl Grey hot, just like Picard. That's a Star Trek reference for anyone who did not get that. But that is literally her favorite drink of all time. So easy. And then after that, it was like, it seemed like we both missed like who we were answering for. So the
Mm.
next question was vacation, and we answered for each other. And so our answers clearly were different. And so when it was done, it's like so we had 1 point, and man, this high school couple killed everybody. So
Ruh-roh. Oh man.
like one of the things was what's your favorite fast food restaurant? And we don't
Taco
eat out a
Bell.
whole lot. When we do, we try to avoid fast food, but
Those
they're
are great.
like they got it. They were like Chick-fil-A nugs, right?
Oh,
And they had like the exact same thing written down. It's like, oh, okay, so that's what
they're bre
y'all do.
they're breaking up
Um,
next week.
so yeah, it was fun, but yeah, we did horribly. So I need some redemption, Phil, if you're listening, which you're not, but that would be great.
Yikes. Yeah, come on, Phil. Be
Uh,
listening. What the heck?
in my defense, or sorry, in Phil's defense, I don't know that we've ever talked about it. The longest conversation I've had ended in him asking me to come and do this, which
Mm,
who knows?
mm.
Maybe he'll
Which
never ask me again.
after the shame you just went through, you're like, yeah, never mind. Don't ask again, Phil. Phil. That's
I
funny.
mean, we were like, I could be everybody's dad that was up on that stage too. So
That's fun.
good times.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's my udder prayer um story.
Didn't
I
answer
do
my question.
I do plan on giving something up for Lent. I'm not sure yet. Still kind of going back and forth between a couple things. I'll figure it out today, I guess.
Well, after enough of
Um,
these podcast recordings, you'll have given up sleep. Maybe that counts.
I always I don't know. I feel like I always land on something that is a lot of times it's behavioral. Like, I used to like give up coffee or give up sugar or something like that. And those things are good, but I like something that kind of forces me into like a fruit of the spirit improvement kind of a thing. So like
Mm-hmm.
I'll give up, raising my voice, or I'll give up complaining, or something like that that is just something I shouldn't do anyway. Um it's hard, right? It'll be something like that that's difficult. So I don't know. A lot of times I know exactly what it is. This time I'm not sure. So I'll probably just pray about it later and just see kind of where things land.
Yeah.
So there you
That's
are.
great. I think
I'd
I
love
think
to give up the cold weather, but I don't think that's an option. So
oh, Georgia was giving it up and then it came back.
mm, same here. Same here.
So, um, I don't have any job updates as of yet. And for those listening, this is going to be one of those weird episodes where it jumps. We had technical issues last week when we recorded, and as in Zoom froze and was only able to retrieve a half file. Woohoo! So we're gonna dive into a conversation in a second, but hopefully today that makes sense to me. It's the middle of the week. That's what I was told was timeline by midweek. So hopefully today one of those uh that operations gig should reach out either with an offer or a hey, we moved on with the other guy. So yay.
Nice. You think they're going to be like, hey, you got it. By the way, we need you here for Easter services.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that's a given.
Oh, is it?
I would probably be starting on Monday if I had to guess.
Oh, I'm sorry. What am I thinking? We're at the beginning of Lent. Come on, Chad. Wow, it's early. Sorry.
Thursday. Yeah. If it was, I mean, if it was the weekend of Easter, what I would see them doing is,
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
yeah, if it was Easter weekend and this was the situation, more than likely for an operations role, not for I think for a pastoral role it looks different. For an operations role, I think they'd probably contract me for that Sunday, or if the pay period started, they would be like, hey, go ahead and start Sunday. We won't onboard you. You're here strictly to help us with the setup, tear down, which is all standard because that's an all hands on deck day anyway. And then Monday would be my first office day where it's like, okay, go talk to HR, go get your computer, go get this. Um, I think if it was a pastoral role, there would be no, we may they probably wouldn't even. I don't know. That's a funny weekend to be hiring on. I also don't know many churches that are going to be intentionally hiring on Easter weekend because that is Easter weekend.
Everyone, yeah, everyone is like beyond capacity, and yeah,
Slammed. Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's a miserable time if you're working in the church, despite the fact that it should be one of the most joyous. I've got, I guess I have thoughts and feelings on that. Hot take.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you and every person that works at a church, I'm sure, have some of those
nah, some
feelings.
some people love it, but I think that's because they thrive in that like high high challenge, low timeline kind of environment. And some of it just comes down like if you plan your stuff well enough ahead of time, it goes fine. Like it goes fine. Just be prepared.
Yeah, I feel my experience with Easter, at least at 11/22, is I really enjoy serving on that day. Um, you know, it's always amazing, right? There's always a great sermon. The worship is always done way up, and it's good. Everything's on point. Like, yeah. But I gotta tell you, when I serve in some capacity and I'm just with people and it's just like, hey, we got 18,000 people coming in the door right now. What are we, a little exaggeration. What are we doing? Where are we parking?
Yep.
And it's just like, hey, everything that has been,
Hmm.
that could have been done
Has been
is
done.
done. And now we just gotta be creative and get through it. And oh, by the way, I'm serving. So it's like, my job's not on the line. I'm just here to help out wherever I can, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Um, so this is my plug to, hey, you should volunteer to help on Easter because the people who are actually employed at your church are probably going to be losing their minds and will be half insane by that point. But hey, it is what it is.
It's all good. All right. So yeah, Abe, take two. Basically, we've been doing Noah. We're jumping into Abraham. And we start off with the beginning of his story found in Genesis 12. If you'd like some enjoyable reading, and by that I mean it's good toilet reading. I don't mean that as offensive to the word. I just mean that it's a lot of so and so begat so and so who lived such and such years. Genesis 11 kind of sets up the house of Abram, which is Abraham's pre-name before he's renamed. I don't have this with me today. Yeah, we're in
I'm
Genesis.
still stuck on toilet reading. I gotta say,
You got bit.
I'm if I had glasses on right now, I'd be doing this and be like,
Hey, listen, at least I didn't kick a football or a Bible like a football on stage, okay?
who did that?
Oh, I'm sending you a link. Hold up. Hold up. Should we wait, should I go find the link and then we screen share it and then like review it? Did we just change the trajectory of the pod? No, that's not this podcast. That's not this
Maybe we should do
podcast.
that sometime. Maybe not right
That's
now.
that's not this podcast. I'm gonna send you this link though, because this happened. Uh, it will make you angry.
So yeah, so as you're doing that, maybe I'll try to set us up.
Try and set us
So
up. My brain's not working.
yeah, so we have Noah, we have following Noah as you so lovingly referred to our scripture. Um there is some of the descendants from Shem, who, as we remember, is one of Noah's sons. And then we come to Um Abram and Sarai. We'll find later their names get changed. But that is how we meet them. And as we meet them, we find out that the Lord is calling Abram to pick up from where he is at, the ripe old age of 75, and,
Yep.
pick up himself, his wife, his family, right? All of their things and go. And where are they going? He does not know. I was gonna say we don't know, but I guess we do know. He does not know. And so he's just called to go by faith. Um, so there we are.
Yep.
So yeah, we pick up with Abram, and he is choosing to follow wherever it is that the Lord is sending him.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess let's read it real quick. Genesis 12, 1 through 9 is what I put in the notes. Um, that should be more than plenty. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and the Lord and Lot, not the Lord, it's low light in here this morning, I'm sorry. And Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran, and Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people that they had acquired in Haran, and they set out to go to the land of Canaan. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place at Shechem, to the oaks of Moreh. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he moved to the hill country on the east of Bethel, not the band, and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on still, going toward the Negeb. I
Boom.
Whoa. Feel like I saw a few things today that I hadn't seen or I don't remember us talking about last week. But
Yeah,
yeah,
same
the
here.
the key principle moment, and then I want to jump into what we saw because we've actually started on time today, a little bit early. We have some time to talk. This might be a 3 hour episode. Not really. It'd be like an hour
It
and a
won't
half. But
be, Shauna. I
it
promise.
it's not. I just cut you out. But uh human thought is the idea that God calls Abram to basically abandon everything he knows and trust him to follow him. And so that kind of sparked this idea, this question for me, for us, for listeners, like what's God calling us to? And then what are we willing to give up? Like what's the yeah, what's the steps of obedience that we're willing to give up? So, or not give up obedience, but in obedience. Gosh, I really wish my brain was firing better this morning. It's rough.
No, you're good. And now I think we were joking earlier, I think before we recorded, that I remembered nothing of what we talked about the last time, right? When we lost the recording. So,
Yeah.
but I think something just came back to memory. And I feel like I may have told this story maybe several times. So I'll kind of be brief. Um, but I remember one time kind of struggling with calling,
Mm.
identity, all that kind of stuff. And I prayed, and I just felt like the Holy Spirit told me, uh, kind of, in the form of a question, or like, what if um, your calling was just to raise your kids?
Mm.
And I was like, first of all, I was kind of floored and, wiping the tears from my eyes and whatnot. And I was just like, yeah, yeah, I could do that. That's a great idea. Thank you, Jesus. Um, and that's kind of been, you know, primarily as a husband and father, kind of what I've really focused on. Um, and there's there's been some challenges that have come with that, right? Like with Abram, he's like, yeah, God, I'll follow you. And as we'll see, he comes into a whole mess of things. Um, and so just because, we trust God and we go where he leads us, it doesn't mean it's going to be all up and to the right. Like
Yeah.
there's going to be there's going to be some struggles, as we find in, spoiler alert, the voices. Wow, my mouth is not awake. The verses immediately following what you just read, right? So,
Yeah.
um, we're in good company, I guess.
Yes.
Uh, but
Yes.
yeah, so that's kind of my story. Um, and I didn't really have this in mind when I was going through that, but I think back and I'm like, well, hey, that's how the Lord showed up in my life, kind of in that way. So, um, I don't know. I feel like when he does that, like that's something you'll just remember. It's I know it's
Yeah.
imprinted in my memory for sure.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I guess what I'm walking in right now, following all the stuff with the fountain and the decision that I had to make in a really quick time span. And after, consulting some wise counsel and praying about it, and we stepped out on faith. That was something that I very much have put I guess the onus, I put the responsibility really in God's hands. Not saying that I sit around and be immature and irresponsible, but he's the author of the story. And so this season is a big one for Megan and I to trust and to lead our family in that trust, in faith. God's going to provide and has continued to provide. Like we're sitting in February 14th. I've been out of consistent work since November 30th. We've lasted a lot longer than I thought we would. Um, I'm not gonna lie. I think I really thought we'd crack and it'd be. And again, things are tight. They're starting to get tighter. There's definitely some panic that arises there, but a lot of this has been a trust exercise, and a lot of this is like I know that there's no credit that I can take on the back end of whatever this thing is. But it required us to move. It required us to, because this is a season that builds trust to then set up for whatever else God might have for us down the road. Because it's what I think I love about Abraham's stories. But to make it to the end of it, I think I referenced this in the recording we lost, but I taught a message called Holy Obedience, and I based it on Abraham and primarily taught out of Genesis 22, which is when he takes Isaac to be sacrificed. But part of the reason that he's willing to follow God in that testing is because he'd seen God's faithfulness prior, starting all the way back here where God's like, "Hey, leave your family," and he's like, or not leave your family, take your family, leave the place that you existed, and then he's protected, he's rescued, um, he's forgiven. I mean, the amount of times he attempts to sell his wife into some kind of service. She's my sister. You can marry her. Yeah. We haven't gotten there, but that's one thing I guess I was just thinking about is like, I don't fully know what my, next calling as far as a physical place is yet. But I know there's that general calling of fulfilling the Great Commission and to trust, and that's kind of what the season we're in right now is just that. Keep trusting, keep doing what I can do, trust God to do what only He can do. And yeah, but I had to give up stuff.
Yeah,
So I think one thing I saw, and I know we had, I know we had some really good conversation when it came to the how do we lead our families, and then where have we seen God do more than we could imagine. But a few things I saw in the text that popped out at me that I don't think I'd noticed before. When they walk through Canaan and God tells Abraham or Abram, he's like, "Hey, your kids are gonna take over this land. I have this land for you, but your kids are gonna inherit it. Keep walking." I wonder if there's ever been times that God walks us by a promise and is like, "It's yours, but not yet." Or is that too Stephen Furticky?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I see that kind of stuff on the backside. What I
Hmm.
mean by that is like it's more of me looking retrospectively and like, oh my goodness, there's no way at that point I would have believed I'd be here. Um, so I think, man, I think what a Christian or not, right? Obviously, our focus is going to be a little bit different, but I think everybody has those things where they're like, oh my goodness, like I never would have thought that I could have gotten to this
Hmm.
place. Um, and yeah, so I just think, I think we see it kind of on the flip side. I mean, maybe I'd love to talk to Sean about this and see what she has to say, but I don't know that I've ever been like, oh yeah, this is where the Lord is going to bring us. Like I don't know that I've ever had that quote unquote Abram moment,
Right,
you
and
know.
his context is different than ours, for sure.
It is. It is.
So,
And who
but I just
knows, man? Who knows how he heard from the Lord? Like, I
that's
always
true.
wonder about that. It's like, was it like the clouds parted and like there was one beam of sunshine that came down on him and he heard this voice,
That's
right?
That Monty
Or
Python moment.
or is he like, yeah, exactly. Or is he like, hey babe, guess what? God just told me this thing. Did he? Okay, so
Oh,
where are
you're
we
hearing
going?
voices
I'll tell you
again.
when we get there.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Internal
we
GPS.
yeah, we spiritualize it, and I'd love to know how that is, but um,
That's true. Yeah.
yeah, he was a dude. Um, yeah,
That was one that stuck out that I don't think I'd ever caught that, at least according to how they wrote the account, Abram kind of knew, hey, this is gonna be maybe not inherited by me, but my kids. So,
yeah. Well, and on that note, one thing that stuck out this time that I missed the last time is when he says, to your point, to your offspring, I'll give this land, right? And so it says Abraham built an altar,
hmm.
right? And then what? Then he just moved on. He's like, okay, God made this promise to me. I'm going to build an altar here, to remember that promise. And then we're moving on because, yeah, like God was here, but, we're not going to sit in this. We're going to,
It's
we're
not
going to
supposed to be
keep
yet.
moving and walk out,
Ooh, that
walk
kind
out
of
that promise.
that kind of lends the thought to the opposite end. So when are there times that we've forced, and I say forced in the sense that it's not that we force anything, but that God goes, "Oh, okay, you want it that badly? Come play in the sandbox for a little while and realize you're not ready yet." Um, but I mean, I wonder if, and mind you, I'm asking these questions as they come to me, and so I don't even know if I have answers at this time. But like, we know one of their seasons where we, instead of building the altar and going, "Okay, cool, I see you, God," and then keep following, that we're like, I'm landing here. This is where I'm supposed to be. And you kind of force yourself into a place that either you're not ready for yet or you're not even supposed to be at. Like again, it doesn't say Abram's gonna settle there. It said his offspring, which is the promised offspring back in like verse 1, where God's like, I'm gonna make you a great nation. And here's the 75-year-old dude and childless. Um, but yeah, that was just a thought that occurred to me, is like, when have we started setting up camp in places we weren't supposed to? Not like sinful places. I'm not talking like,
Yeah. And that's kind of where I was going. So we love to make fun of Peter, which I actually, a lot of that I don't get. But anyway, we make fun of Peter, where he's up literally on the mountaintop and doing the whole,
it
it
is
is
good that
good that
we are
we are
here.
here. Let me build us some tents. But man, who do you know that has one of those mountaintop experiences, right? That
Yeah,
doesn't want to just camp out there. I mean, I think it's a perfectly
that's true.
natural thing to do. It's like, oh wow, like I just had this amazing experience. God showed up,
Yeah,
spoke to me.
yeah,
I've got more like I now see my identity in him. I see that, this part, this thing that I need to be called to. And man, I don't want to leave this moment. Um, but Abraham kind of, oops, Abram shows us here that it's got, it's time to move on. Um, and but at the same time, he's like, yes, God made this promise to me.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm gonna, hope toward the end of that promise. And so to that end, I'm erecting this altar, but it's time, he's
Yeah.
calling us onward, so we're gonna keep moving.
Yeah. That's good. That makes sense with that mountaintop moment because I can't. The amount of times I'd come back after a camp, whether as a student, really as a student, I'm thinking on the other end now as a small group leader or a student pastor, and the conversation is, okay, how do we keep the fires lit? How do we keep recreating? And it's never this. It's funny. Maybe this is where being out of it full time is good. Do I miss it? Funny, last night I was laying there and I was like, man, I miss the pain of doing student ministry. Like I miss the, and that sounds backwards and almost sadistic, but it's like I miss seeing students on a weekly basis putting in the pain, sweat, and tears to build relationships, and then have them turn around and be like, you don't speak to me because you're talking to like middle schoolers, whatever. They get all petty because they're ridiculous. But then you love them anyway because that's what you're called to do. But that camp high moment, it's almost like we get so fast tracked on how do we recreate the camp high? How do we recreate that experience versus the what do we do to train our people in spiritual disciplines so that they continue to walk from that place and it's not there in that way there's never a regression. It's just okay, you're gonna plateau, you're gonna hit their mountaintop, you're also gonna hit their low. Like after every mountaintop is a valley. Can't live on the mountaintop forever. It's low oxygen. Um And that's probably something that even like events like Saturated, that needs to be a thought. Saturated gets adults all on a camp high, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna go conquer the world," but like, what happens in 3 weeks after? I don't know. That's a good point. That was a really good point. Um,
Yep, don't hang out on the mountaintop too long.
Again, low oxygen. I
Yeah,
just think about
we're not, we're not all Sherpas.
no, we're monastics. All right, so I think the big place we landed, and that I kind of want to get to again because I can actually see it. I see it in the text this go around, and it's funny. I don't know why I didn't see it last week. Maybe I was just having a moment, but is the idea of where have we seen obedience to God be more than we imagined? I referenced two texts. One was John 10:10, which is the thief comes, steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and life to the abundance or life to the full. So that's Jesus's words. And it's this idea that in Jesus you have the abundant life, not a prosperity gospel, but just that your life is lived full. It's full of meaning, it's full of purpose. Really, it's just full of Jesus. Or in Old Testament context, you're full of covenant living with God. You got to be close to God. I mean, we give the Old Testament a lot of crap, I think sometimes, and I think we also are like, oh, glad I don't live in those days. No hand washing, no TV, blah blah blah. But everybody I've read about, like the, I mean, I know you just popped the question of I wonder how he talked to Abram, but regardless, he spoke to Abram and in a context that we don't speak with God. I have never heard the physical voice of God to my knowledge. Um, the way I love to quote Joby on that one and be like, "You want to hear the voice of God? Open your Bible and read it out loud."
Can I just say I hate that statement? I just hate it.
Which one?
The you want to hear the voice of God, open your Bible. So I get
Oh,
it, right?
do you
Everybody,
really hate
every
that?
I absolutely do. Because like that is to minimize the fact that God actually does speak in that way.
Yeah.
People do hear audibly from him. Um, and so I get it, right? It's a little funny thing, and it's not something that everybody gets. And we really shouldn't be just like sitting here waiting on him to speak audibly. I think that's probably what that little joke is getting at. But
Yeah, and some of that
uh
might be him trying to play back too. If you hear God audibly and you haven't tested what you've heard up against
Oh,
scripture. Because if there's an incongruency, then you didn't hear from God, you're hearing yourself,
oh,
or
for
you're
sure.
hearing something else. So, because
Yeah, I get, yeah,
I don't think we teach that safety net enough. You're gonna get me on their whole train of how pastors have become too much like spokespersons and just funny. I thought we tried to break away from that with the Catholic Church after we split, but um, all that to say, I've never heard him personally. I'm sure I've had some nudges, and it might be that I have, and then in his grace, so that I'm not getting caught up on it, he's allowed me to kind of forget the audible hearing, but obviously still see the fruit kind of play out.
yeah,
And then the other passage was Ephesians 3:20, which I think is the he can do more than we can. He's able to do more than we can imagine. And again, not trying to push a prosperity gospel, but more so just this idea that a life in Christ, when lived fully surrendered, to quote myself from my seasons of ministry, when lived sent, this big idea I was pushing my students on, um, that you're going to see God do more than you could possibly imagine. And so that was this question that we tossed around, and we'll jump to it in a second. I just realized though that Abram's story, we see that right at the beginning of his story. If you think about it, God, and we may have talked about this last week, but again, we lost the recording, so who knows? Somewhere in the Zoom cloud database, somebody's engineer somewhere will find it in 80 years when they start doing digital archaeology. Um, that's the way I think the future is going to go. But he tells them in verse 3 as he goes through that whole, I'm going to bless those who bless you, I'm going to curse those who dishonor you. And then he's like, in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. And obviously, there's the Jesus blessing. There's the, hey, through your line comes the new covenant, comes Christ, comes the gospel, comes this beautiful story of restoration, blesses all families across all generations and time. But the other one, I remember taking my students through this so they could see it for themselves. But like the amount of gifts that the Jewish people alone have given to the earth, like some of our modern medicines, Waze, the GPS system, comes out of a Jewish company, or it started there.
yeah, yeah. They are huge in technology, like specifically IT. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So if you like,
absolutely.
it's one of the things I try to point to my students is like, hey, the blessings, this wasn't just like some random, like we're living in the blessings. Like this is real. This is Bible come to life. But I'm sure for Abram, like I'm just thinking about this, like this was more than he could have imagined. He never saw this. He never imagined of a GPS system. He wasn't like, oh yeah, I need my donkey to tell me to turn left. Like, he's not thinking through some of that. So anyway, that's an idea and so then the question is for us, where in our obedience, if we've lived that much life, some of our listeners probably more my age, where we're younger and something about that young age where either we haven't been as obedient as we should have been, or we have been obedient in such small steps that we don't feel like we've really seen the other side of some of that obedience yet. The gift of retrospect is still shorter. Trying to give myself some grace there. And again, I'm rambling. So
Yeah, and
Chad,
Joby brought that Ephesians 3:20 into his sermon this weekend in the context of prayer. Like, like, hey, if he can do more than we can ask or imagine, well, shoot, like that means we should be praying some pretty bold prayers, right? And
mm-hmm.
that's kind of the concept of elder led prayer. At least the heart behind it. I know one thing I heard Joby talk about in the Deepen podcast this week was that, you know, one of the things he really wants to see our church grab onto and move into is some of um those times of like corporate prayer, right? Which I think is great. Now granted, I hope it's counted as an excused absence. Joking. But seriously, when you go to one of those things, you see, oh wow, this it's not really a whole lot of people here, you
Mm,
know. Um, and I think a lot of people would be pleasantly surprised as to how that goes. I think, wait, we're gonna just come for an hour, we're just gonna pray. Like, what's that about? Um, but
right.
it's actually always been pretty, pretty filling, and they do it differently each time, but it's cool because you get to hear from our elders, you get to hear, kind of vision kind of stuff, and you just get to hear them praying. And a lot of times um, we have like, prayers response. We get together in groups and pray. You get to meet people. Like it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so anyway, getting off track here, but anyway, he said so he teaches that in context of prayer. Um, but I also kind of like the obedience thing because it allows you to kind of look back and say, hey, either I was obedient in this thing and look at what God has done, look at where he's brought me, or it's like with where I am now, if I'm if I'm obedient in this, if I'm doing what I think that he's called me to do, like where is it that could lead to?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a powerful concept. And I think, it's funny. I talked about that and kind of looking back on when my kids were younger
Yeah.
and some of the sacrifices that I made, some of the decisions I made, and you shared on kind of being in the middle of that
Yeah.
right now with, expectancy to see where God is gonna what he's
Yeah.
gonna do
What
with
he's
where
gonna
we are now.
do. And I have to temper it with I know it's not gonna be this like job where it's gonna be like, what do I say? If I take the operations job, that's not more than I can imagine. Because I've done it before, but I am believing that it sets up and that in 5 years I might be in a place or have had experiences or opportunities to do things that are more than I could imagine. And that this might be one of those pathways that he gets us there. Um, what is beyond my imagination is just that I didn't have to go looking for that opportunity. Like my name was thrown out there by a previous boss and was heavily encouraged and recommended. I do appreciate that and recognize that as that's got to be a little bit of, God's favor, him doing more than I could. Because I didn't think that was a sitting there in that coffee shop when I got that text. I was still looking at like jobs at Best Buy and stuff. Like I was getting to that low point where I was like, all right, we've had a lot of closed doors. Let's start
Yeah.
looking in the marketplace, you know? Hi, buddy. How you
Well,
doing?
I kind of also liken this to, shout out to your boy, book
Oh,
binding, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, hear a lot of, and Shauna is the one who enlightened me on this, but she's like, hear a lot of people just kind of complaining about, oh, wow, that's kind of expensive and it kind of takes a while. And what's the
Mm,
deal? Like, why am I paying so much money for you to slap a new cover on my book and, rebind it and all this kind of stuff? It's like, well, you're not paying to have your book rebound. You're paying someone's expertise that has put in the time
yeah,
to do it and to do it right. And not to say I've arrived, but there's places in my career where it's like, you know um the reason I'm in a successful job right now is because I've learned a lot of stuff on the way, and it's not necessarily all things that like I can go to school and learn.
yeah,
A lot of it's just based on knowledge and experience and what has happened. And I carry that with me. And um man, I've gone through you know layoffs and having to leave jobs and do things. And I'm like, what is going on here? What is the point? And looking back on it, I can see that God really did a lot through those things in me, um, but also giving me experiences that have allowed me to carry a lot of that forward. So yeah, I mean, I think, we can imagine a lot, but I think, you kind of get on the other side of it. And you're like, oh wow, I never would have thought I would have gone like this, or I never
Yeah.
really thought I would have gotten to this place. Um, and yeah, and I think a lot of the fruit that you're gonna see is kind of walking through this and what you get in faith, and you realize, oh wow, he's, you know, he's not just gonna let me sit here forever,
Yeah.
right? He does have
Yeah.
something. Um, and I know that's kind of a cliche, like, oh, just wait to see what God does through this. But it's true. It really is. And it's hard to I think it's hard to sit in that. But man, I don't know. I think in terms of our relationship to God and our discipleship to Jesus, like, I don't know, I think it can just we can really get a lot of fruit from that.
Yeah.
And I say that as somebody that never wants to have to go through that again. Like it's
Oh
difficult.
yeah, no.
That growing is not always the easiest thing.
That is true.
Sermon ended.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So
Shoot. Is there anything
shall
else
we
with
shall we
Abram you'd
make
like
like
to hit?
Abram and move on to the next stop?
We're going to Bethel. It's fine. I think I think so. I think one thing I remembered that I wanted you to share again because we lost it, but one of the way the question was worded is where have we seen God bless more than we can imagine or bless obedience? And you talked about Jude last week. And
Oh yes.
so I'd love for you to share that with our listeners because that might be really encouraging for some of them out there. And then it kind of helps put some 2023, 2024, more so 2024, we're in that year now. But a non Old Testament context. But hey, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so and I don't remember exactly what I shared. I do remember talking about it, but and I know I've probably shared a little bit about this before, but yeah, Jude was born. He was born at 30 weeks. So his ish like his due date was September 11th and he was born in July, right? So yeah, he was way early. We were super freaked out. And uh this girl that was a friend of Shauna's at the time shared with her just kind of some wisdom that she had gotten from a friend who wrote a letter that said, hey, like, your kid is here, I mean, here being the NICU,
Mm-hmm.
and is having, all these things done, people watch him, tubes in, right? All these things happen
Yeah.
so that this baby can heal. You need to make sure that you are in a right place for when you bring that baby home. So don't spend your entire life here and be totally exhausted. And when you bring that baby home, you're not able to enjoy it. You're just at an end, physically, emotionally, spiritually, like in every way. And so we really took that to heart. We were there for sure. We were there a
Mm-hmm.
lot. We split time. Sean would go in the morning. I would go like on my way home from work, and we would, hold him and talk to him, right, and do all of the things up there. And it was great. It was hard. It was difficult. Um, Brought him home. Had to do all these crazy tests that just like, I mean, I see somebody doing this to my kid, like I'm ready to throw down. Like it was some pretty crazy stuff. Like we had to go to Wolfson's and have these like crazy eye tests done where they like
Oh,
stick a thing into their eye and and they're screaming bloody murder and for good reason. And it's just yeah, it was not pretty, but and they had all these things like, oh, he's preemie, so you have, he's gonna have eye problems and he's gonna have digestive problems and he's gonna have all these things.
yeah.
Man, none of that came to pass. And man, we had our disciple groups praying. We had friends and family praying and checking in on us and doing all those things. And man, it was great. And I mean, the Lord really healed him. For the first couple years, we go to the doctor and you see that little like uh percentile chart they put you on where
Mm-hmm.
your kid, in head circumference or in height or weight or whatever is on this spectrum. And man, he wasn't even on the spectrum, man, for most of these things. He just was like height and weight. He just like was on the, beyond the low end.
Yeah.
Um, and and as he grew and developed, uh those those things changed. And man, none of the things that they said he was going to struggle with, none of those things wound up happening. I mean, to the point where, and I actually did. So last time I remember saying, I want to take a picture because I think Jude is about Shauna's height. Well, I can officially say now that he is past Shauna. So he is taller than her. He is taller than probably all of his friends. Um, and he's very gifted. He's a musician. He plays the piano. Um, he and he is enormous. And and so I mean, in that moment, I was like, God, just give us another day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring, but just give us another day with this kid. Give us the strength to get through today, and let us get to the next point. It was hard to think that far down the road, but now looking back on those times, like, and I love that we are on this side of that. Because man, I'll tell you, he rolls his eyes every time. But every single
Mm.
time we have a birthday, I write something to him or I tell him to his face in front of everybody, and I'm like, listen, God made you a fighter because you had to go through things that most people do not have to go through, and you
Yeah.
came out on the other side. And you were just, I tell them, it's like you were so stubborn that you decided you were coming when you were coming, and you were just gonna deal with all this crap on the back end. And and it's true. And he continues um to be that person. And I see that he does indeed fight for the things that he wants. He doesn't always do things the way we would have him do them. He doesn't always do things what I would say is like, the right way or the best way, or whatever. But he
Mm-hmm.
he is he is there. He is a fighter. He is not afraid of challenging the status quo, um of fighting for the things that he thinks that God has for him. So I don't remember what I shared the last time, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing where, like, in the moment, it's like, wow, I don't know how we're gonna get through this.
Yeah.
I don't know what next year looks like, much less tomorrow. But seeing it on the other side, it's like, wow. I'm thankful that we went through it. I would have loved to have not had to go through that thing, but at
Yeah.
the same time, looking back and seeing all that God has done, despite all the negative news and forecasts we were getting, and things that people would say, you know out of the kindness of their heart, but not the thing you want to be hearing.
Right.
All of that stuff. But to be on the other side of all of that and to see what God has done is just, it's amazing. And so Abram, right, set up an altar, and it's important that we remember these things because, like, it's easy, especially so Joby talked this weekend about faith, and about faith is just kind of like acting like you believe it. Like, you have all these doubts, but what
Yeah.
do? You just keep moving forward. You
Yeah.
act as if God is who he says he is, and that he keeps his promises,
Yeah.
and just move forward with that. And I think in moving forward in that way, we will see, and as we remember those things, it will help our faith in the current season, because it's so easy to forget all the amazing things that God has done,
Yeah.
that we cannot, we just can't believe that God's gonna do more than we can ask of him. And in this case, man, I'll tell you, that's the truth. That is the God honest truth. And it doesn't mean everything's, what is it?
cotton candy and Cadillacs, right?
That's right. That's
It
right.
doesn't mean that everything's up and to the right all the time. But as we look back on some of these things, where God has brought us from, I think it just, I think it is inspiration for our faith, and to know that, he's not done with us. And yeah, so there we are.
Yeah.
There's the story of Jude.
Appreciate it, Chad. Thanks for sharing.
And one of these days, I'll convince him to come on.
That'd be fun. That'd be
I've asked him
fun.
a couple times. It's like, no, Dad.
Not at 6 a.m.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
That would not go
Definitely
well.
not 6 a.m. So
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna let you get to it. Uh,
yes, sir.
we're gonna sign off. Go do something Valentine's-y for your kiddos and family. But listeners out there, stay obedient. And I think let's get back in the habit of making altars, if nothing else, for the sake of remembering what God has done and is promising. So, all
Hey,
right.
Justin,
Yeah.
Rock on.
It's worth going and watching the video version, guys. It's always worth it. All right, y'all. With that, this ad report is closed.
Bye.
Bye.